What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it feels good to be back, and a big shout out to everyone who sent messages through Twitter and email and everything with all of the well wishes. Very much appreciate that. And everything went as smoothly as it can with that situation, of course. The baby's healthy, the mom's healthy, so everything is good there. And I'm excited to be back because a lot of stuff happened in just the couple of days I was gone, which includes a bunch of improvements done to the Nintendo Switch online service with those N64 games. Project Spartacus has a new report pointing out some of the different tiers we could be expecting, and Nintendo decided to join the acquisition race. Kind of. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Valve and Game Pass. This has been something that's come up a few times. Specifically, could we see Game Pass, that subscription service, head to Steam natively? Well, according to Gabe Newell, yeah, it absolutely could, and they're actually basically saying, Microsoft, if you want it done, let's do it. We can see this posted up over on VGC from Gabe Newell saying, I don't think it's something that we think we need to do ourselves, building a subscription service at this time, but for their customers, it's clearly a popular option, and we'd be more than happy to work with them to get that on Steam. We've talked to people there quite a bit about that topic. If your customers want it, then you should figure out how to make it happen. That's where we're at. I mean, this would be great to see Game Pass go to Steam, especially now that the Steam Deck is starting to make its way out into the wild, into consumers' hands. Of course, we saw all the reviews that had positives and negatives. It looks like this is going to be quite a project for Valve over the coming years, and I'm sure they'll release more and more Steam Decks and improve it going forward. But having something like Game Pass just added in, I mean, that's just extra value there, and one less place you'd have to go to experience that. Basically, if you want everything to be on Steam and then you have Game Pass added in, it just makes things easier and would add, I think, just more value to that Steam Deck. The fact that Valve is looking at this and saying, hey, we're even willing to help you get this on the service, I think they see that too. Also, we did have the PlayStation Plus games for the month of March revealed, which we can see this over on PlayStation Blog. We have the nice little card here showing off the different games, starting with Ghost Runner. That's the PS5 game of the month there. And then we have Ark Survival Evolved, that's PS4. Team Sonic Racing, PS4, and then Ghost Tsushima Legends. This is like they say it's like a bonus, but it's the PS4 or PS5 version. That's like the standalone multiplayer that they did with the game. Originally, they had that as like just an add-on if you had the game. But then they decided, hey, if you want to buy it, it's $20. But here it is, PlayStation Plus. You can go ahead and claim it. And this is a pretty solid lineup, I would say. I mean, Ghost Runner looks really cool. I haven't played that one yet, but I did see the trailer, and that would be something I'd check out. And then Team Sonic Racing is a lot of fun. Ark, well, it's Ark. People like it, but it's not the best experience on console. And then Ghost Tsushima Legends is awesome. I definitely recommend that. Now, you can start claiming these as of March 1st, running all the way until April 4th. So, pretty good lineup here for the month of March, but also let's take a look at Xbox Live games with gold for the same month. Now, we also had a little card and trailer released over on the news.xbox.com. And, well, let's see, we have The Flame in the Flood. That's available March 1st to the 31st. Street Power Soccer. That's March 16th to April 15th. Sacred 2 Fallen Angel. That's March 1st to the 15th. And then SpongeBob's Truth or Square. That's available March 16th to the 31st. I mean, I have no other way to say it other than this is a bad lineup. I mean, it's been like this consistently for several months now. Actually, maybe even longer, a while, basically, that games with gold, it's an afterthought for Microsoft. They want you in the Game Pass, and I guess the way they're trying to push people there is your $60 isn't really worth doing games with gold. You might as well upgrade and go to Game Pass. Or if you're someone who just pays for the online, doesn't care about the games, I guess it's not a big deal. You might as well claim them. And I guess out of these, Sacred 2, is that the game to recommend here? I hope Microsoft has either plans for making this games with gold lineup better going forward, or just getting rid of Xbox Live Gold, make the multiplayer free, and rely strictly on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate as like their big subscription revenue generator. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Nintendo Switch Online, which has come under fire quite a bit, basically since it released, and then again when we had the expansion pack. But I'll give Nintendo some credit, they have been working to add value through things like the Mario Kart downloadable content and the pass that they have there, Animal Crossing as well, and then they have continued, at least over the last couple of months, to add a Nintendo 64 game to the service. Well, it looks like they have been doing a lot of updates in the background for this service, for some of these different games, and a lot of it kind of seems like stuff that people have pointed out online, which does tell me that Nintendo's at least listening to people when they point these things out on places like Twitter. But for example, we can see Oatmeal Dome here, which, yeah, technically this is a spoiler, so I'll just link Oatmeal Dome's tweet here and show that on screen. If you want to go look further, you can. Like I said, it's in the sources below. They say, here's a situation where the Switch version is actually better than previous releases and more accurate to N64 thanks to a patch added by Nintendo. It fixes a cutscene running too fast, causing it to end too early. This is a scene towards the end of Majora's Mask, but yeah, compared to something like the Wii Virtual Console version of Majora's Mask, it actually runs much closer to the Nintendo 64 original version, to where that scene plays out fully. So interesting that that was fixed here, but then we were dealing with things like the water, right, in Ocarina of Time. Well, it looks like that's also been fixed. That from Oatmeal Dome, once again, there appears to be a bunch of game configuration updates that they'll be covering in another tweet, but the infamous water temple room is completely fixed as that fog has been restored. In fact, it looks like Nintendo has gone around and sort of tweaked the settings so that the fog was, again, closer to the original Nintendo 64 versions that we played back in the 90s. It also looks like a crash with Paper Mario, where after you lose to a certain enemy and get a game over, the game itself was crashing. That's also been fixed. So Nintendo, while they did push this update 2.0.0 and Majora's Mask showed up, it looks like they went around and did a lot of little touches. There are even some that people aren't even sure what they do. Like Oatmeal Dome, for example, here points this out, saying unknown code patch added to Banjo, patches related to rendering added to Ocarina of Time. A fog-related patch, Fog Factor, was removed from Star Fox 64. So we're kind of figuring out what they're doing here, and then there's also stuff that we're just looking at like, wow, they're going in and just fixing a lot of the smaller details. And this is good news all the way around, because it does show at least a proactive approach from Nintendo to respond. I don't want to say quickly, because the expansion pack service has been out for months now, but they're at least taking everything in, listening to feedback, and acting on it. And it does take a little bit of time to get these updates out there through certification. Even though it's Nintendo, they have to make sure that it won't break the game worse. So while we are seeing a slow trickle of games, at least Nintendo is going back and attempting to fix the games that were already there, to the point now where, I mean, you can pretty much recommend these different games because they are getting closer and closer to those Nintendo 64 counterparts, much more than the Wii, or definitely the Wii U. So good stuff from Nintendo there. Now it's the question of how are they going to keep up this release schedule for these Nintendo 64 games. Next up, let's talk about the Pokemon Presents that aired yesterday morning. It was about 13 or 14 minutes long, and I think people went in with lowered expectations, mostly because we were coming off of Pokemon Legends Arceus that created a lot of hype and buzz online and sold very, very well. And I think people were figuring, you know what? That's probably the Pokemon game for the rest of 2022. Maybe we'll see new downloadable content here for it. Well, there was technically an update here for Arceus, but certainly a big surprise at the end of this presentation for Pokemon fans. But we'll start here with Pokemon Legends Arceus Daybreak update that's out right now. It's version 1.1.0, and it'll have trainers investigating mysterious mass outbreaks of Pokemon that are popping up all over the region. So pretty cool to already see an update there, and I do think they're going to continue updating Legends Arceus going forward, certainly through the rest of this year. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl also getting an update that'll allow you to add the mythical Pokemon Shaman, that by talking to Professor Oak on Route 224. Pokemon Go is going to add a Pokemon from the Alolan region. That's starting March 1st. Pokemon Masters EX, that's been going for 2.5 years apparently, but there are going to be free gifts added in, which includes 3,000 gems and 10 sync pairs each day for 10 days, that being for free. Pokemon Cafe Remix, that adds bonuses for Pokemon Day of 2022. And then we have Pokemon Unite. Players can try out mythical Pokemon, Hoopa, and earn its license. So Good news there for Pokemon Unite players. But the big thing, obviously, that people have been talking about is that Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet are announced, and it's coming out late 2022. That's right. So in the span of 12 months, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, Pokemon Legends Arceus, and now Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. We also had a look at the 3 different starters, which includes the grass, water, and fire type. We have like a duck, a cat, and then a fire crocodile, which seems like the obvious choice. I mean, come on, who's gonna pick a duck or a cat over the crocodile that can shoot fire? I thought it was a dinosaur at first. Apparently it's a crocodile. We almost had to cancel Gen 9, but I guess we'll see what Fuecoco evolves into here. But one of the things that was pointed out when you started to read through it was that it is indeed an open world Pokemon game, but it will be pulling some stuff from traditional Pokemon games, not necessarily being completely like Legends Arceus. It looks like you will still go into battles to capture Pokemon. You won't necessarily be running around just throwing Pokeballs at them, like the more action-oriented setup with some stealth in Legends Arceus. But I'm curious how they will be tackling the open world with Scarlet and Violet, in the sense that, can you just go to any gym you want initially? Are there gyms in the game? Do they have something else set up where you earn badges, right, to get to the end of the game, to where you become the Pokemon master and all of this? Will levels scale at these different gyms depending on which one you pick first and which one you pick last? These are all things that Game Freak would have to figure out as they go forward here in development. So I'm very curious how this turns out, what they've taken from Legends Arceus, but also what they've kept from more traditional Pokemon games like Sword and Shield. But certainly a lot of excitement and a massive release now for Nintendo to anchor their holiday season and potentially put it right next to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 and a bunch of other releases. We're still hearing about this Metroid Prime remaster. Bayonetta's out there somewhere along with Splatoon. So that paired with Xenoblade, it's just a packed second half of 2022, provided everything comes together for Nintendo with Breath of the Wild 2. But exciting stuff there for Pokemon fans. We'll just have to keep an eye out to see what else we learn with Scarlet and Violet, specifically when it comes to that open world. Next up, let's talk about Project Spartacus, which is reportedly Sony's big revamp of their subscription services for PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now. Massive report that had come out from Bloomberg earlier on this year that really put this on the radar. And now it looks like more information has continued to trickle out. This from Jeff Grubb on his show with Giant Bomb Grub Snacks. We can see this transcribed by VGC, where he says, right now they are called Essential, Extra, and Premium. The pricing, again, could be a placeholder, but the price is $10 a month for Essential, $13 a month for Extra, and $16 a month for Premium. So I would believe that these could be placeholder names as well. I'm trying to think of how Sony is going to convey this, because we already heard that there are 3 different tiers and they will vary in pricing and obviously what you get with them. But Jeff Grubb did go a bit further into what each one will get you. And I think a lot of people understand that Essential, that's probably just PlayStation Plus as it is now. So you kind of look towards Extra and Premium, especially the more expensive one. What could that offer that maybe puts it more in line with what Microsoft does with Game Pass? Well, this again from Jeff Grubb saying, do you get full games? Not really, kinda. It's like EA Play. You get full game trials. I don't know if that's for every single game that comes out, but it seems like that. You also get classic games and streaming. None of the other tiers will have cloud streaming. You also get classic games. So the idea here with that premium tier is, yeah, you'll have streaming, you'll have classics, but you also have these game trials. And if it's like what EA does with their EA Play service, games will come out and you get like 10 hours with EA. Like Grid Legends came out. If you had EA Play, you could have just downloaded that and played it for 10 hours. I did that with Need for Speed Heat, and it was actually a pretty cool way to see if I actually liked that game. Battlefield was amazing for that, because I was able to download Battlefield, play it for a couple of hours, and realize that, yeah, this isn't gonna be a great experience to continue. So it technically saved me from that. But Sony's the interesting one, because if they did that with some of their narrative-driven experiences, could you actually go through most of that story in 10 hours? I mean, maybe it's like a 5-hour thing. Maybe they pick and choose. Like Gran Turismo is an easy one. You let someone play Gran Turismo for 10 hours and they're probably just scratching the surface of the overall game where you're collecting different cars and going through these really long races. Now, the extra tier being one down from premium would be essentially PlayStation Now, none of the trials, streaming, anything like that. But I do like the emphasis on classic games, and I hope Sony shows up with a really big library of PS1, PS2, and PSP as was described previously by Bloomberg. But the thing that I'm unsure about is cloud streaming isn't going to be available for any of the other services or those tiers. Well, PS3 games would have to be streamed, right? So then does that mean that PS3 games would only be for that highest tier? We'll see. A lot of questions still around Spartacus, but I am very curious as to how Sony presents this, communicates all of this information, and sets up these tiers to feel like it has enough value to potentially be $15 or $16 a month. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Nintendo joining the acquisition race, kind of, not on the scale of like Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard for nearly $70 billion or Sony buying Bungie for like $3 billion. More like Nintendo buying SRD for like $500,000. Now, this is actually a pretty good move for that price, and we can see this over on Yahoo saying, today Nintendo announced it's acquiring longtime partner SRD Systems Research and Development, a company that has helped in programming some of the company's most iconic games, including Super Mario Bros. SRD is a development company which has been closely involved for nearly 4 decades in developing Nintendo video game software, said Nintendo in an official statement. Now, SRD goes all the way back to 1979. In fact, you can see a large list of games that they have helped to develop, which is mostly what they do. They run support, and they do it pretty well, seeing as how they've been doing it for so long, and with some of Nintendo's most crucial and valuable intellectual properties. Like I said, dating all the way back to the original Donkey Kong on the NES, even up now to things like Game Builder Garage or Animal Crossing New Horizons. And I mean, Animal Crossing was very important for Nintendo in 2020 and has gone on to sell tons and tons of copies. So SRD, while it's not the big flashy move, it makes sense. Nintendo has said several times that the game development process is getting harder and it's getting more expensive. SRD is an interesting one though, because they were already in like Nintendo's offices. So this might have been news to them that they weren't owned by Nintendo yet, because they were so close to them that I wouldn't be shocked if someone was hired in the last couple of years and they just thought they worked at Nintendo. Well, it's now been made official, and this will, of course, help to even make that relationship much closer, obviously, but allow Nintendo to fund directly and not set up through contracts and all of this. Just kind of make that workflow more efficient in a time where it absolutely has to be for larger games like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, or maybe a new big 3D Mario game, or yeah, the next Animal Crossing. There's a lot of intellectual properties that Nintendo, I'm sure, would like to create games for. It's just making sure they have the development staff to be able to do that at the quality that they want. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, which Pokemon version are you getting? There's 19% Scarlet, 15% Violet, 13% said both, and then 53% said neither of them. If you're someone who picked up Arceus and you're like, I don't really want to go back to traditional Pokemon stuff, I just want to follow the Legend series going forward, I think they're going to pull some stuff from Arceus, but we certainly need to see a lot more about that open world, because what they showed us was very small amounts of the game, some quick shots here and there of the landscapes and all this, but like we haven't seen the battle system or any of that. But I feel like FOMO will kick in as we get closer and closer to the release of Pokemon, because it always seems to. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Morrow saying, I'm not worried about the PSVR 2 cable being damaged. What I am worried about, however, is if the cable is too short. Because if it is too short, you will not be able to replace it with a longer cable. Cable length tends to be where companies tend to cheap out on. Modular design is the only acceptable design. I'm still surprised that it's not a modular cable, unless Sony was worried that it would fall out while you're playing or moving around, or they're worried that if that did get damaged, you would go get a third-party cheap cable or something. That is a good point, though, when it comes to cable length for the PSVR 2, especially if we will be moving around potentially with it. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work out right now, because you figure Sony will account for a longer cable, but what if they don't? Well, I guess someone did mention in the comments below that they could just sell extensions, and I mean, that's how you nickel and dime someone who's already bought potentially a $500 headset. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's the Pokemon Presents with the big surprise, Scarlet and Violet, Gen 9 kicking off at the end of this year. Let me know if that surprised you. Also, what about Nintendo making all of these updates to the Nintendo Switch Online service? Some of them pretty small and certainly details that people wouldn't have noticed. Does that make you optimistic for the service going forward? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.